Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGO Traders. My name is Taryn, and let's talk about Ravnica Allegiance previews for January 3rd, 2019. Alright guys, it's day 2 of preview season, and we've got quite a few spicy things to talk about. Notably, of course, we have 2 Planeswalker cards to talk about, and I'm not going to spend any time kind of trumping this up. Let's get right into it with Dovin Grand Arbiter, a 3-mana, 3 loyalty, +1, -1, and -7 legendary Planeswalker Dovin. It's in the set. It's mythic. It looks sweet. Let's get into it. +1 unto end of turn. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a loyalty counter on Dovin Grand Arbiter. You can -2 and create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. You gain 1 life. And -7, look at the top 10 cards of your library, put 3 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Dovin Grand Arbiter is okay. I really like this card in a Jeskai list or just a Azorius control list. A lot of people were saying, especially Strictly Better, on Twitter, that this could be really good in a like unblockables list in blue-white, like a blue-white tempo list with Dovin Grand Arbiter, because of course the +1 here makes it so Grand Arbiter can be like immediately -7 or immediately -7 the following turn, which I think is really cool. The only issue for me, of course, is that it has very little protection, or if it does have protection, it's -1 and it dies to a shock, and that's not great for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. 3 loyalty Planeswalker usually means it's really aggressive, but you really don't want to be doing that for Azorius. Getting this down pretty cheaply while holding up counters is a good thing though, and that's something you probably want to be doing with Grand Arbiter here. I'm not really too hot on this card, honestly. It makes a flyer, you gain a life, that's fine. You know, the +1 is only really useful in a tempo deck or a creature-based deck, and the -7, while super fun and basically dig through Dovin, which is really fun, or Dovin through time, I guess you could say that too. I think that this is probably just fine. -7 definitely will get you your win conditions for your deck list, and that's totally okay, but not much protection, not much in the +1 department, and just not much overall for Dovin Grand Arbiter though. Let's look into a different Planeswalker though. We've got Kaya Orzhov Usurper. This is a 3-mana, again, 3 loyalty, again, +1, -1, and -5. Legendary Planeswalker Kaya. You can +1 here, exile up to 2 target creature cards from a single graveyard. You gain 2 life if at least one of the creature cards was exiled this way. +1 is very interesting, not really great at removing or protecting itself. -1 here, exile target non-land permanent with a converted mana cost 1 or less. That's even worse. Okay. -5, Kaya deals damage to target player equal to the number of cards that player owns in exile, and you gain that much life. What? I don't know if Kaya is good, guys. I'm not really that big of a fan. I really need to see more of the set to see what Kaya can really do in this format. Right now, Kaya just kind of does nothing. I mean, you gain life, which is nice for the +1, so I guess that's fun for the Orzhov guild. I wish it was a +2 gain life, -2 your opponent loses life. That would be way more feasible for me for the +1 here. The -1 also is not that great, since a lot of stuff right now is really 2 mana or up for removal. That's the reason why Abrupt Decay and all that kind of stuff works so well, is because 3 mana and down is really good, but 1 mana and down is not great. I mean, you can get Legion's Landing, I guess. That's fine, right? And -5 here, dealing damage that way seems like not that effective, especially since it's a -5. You can technically get this off the 3rd turn after it's cast, which I guess is fine, but until we see more of the Ravnica Allegiance set, I'm not really sold on Kaya just yet. I really think this card isn't that great, honestly. You know, I guess you could just say the meme, I guess Dredge got a new enemy. Not too hot about Kaya, honestly, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Maybe I'm missing something, and maybe, you know, in the future with more cards coming out with Ravnica Allegiance, we see more stuff that has to do with exile and exiling things from the graveyard. I think that might be more fun. Maybe there's like a mill deck somewhere in here, like a weird like Esper mill deck with Kaya. That might be really fun. But nevertheless, let's get on to some other cards here. Judith the Scourge Diva. That's literally the name of this card, which is amazing. Love the art as well. A 3-mana 2/2 legendary creature, human shaman. Other creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Judith the Scourge Diva deals 1 damage to any target. I really love this card in Rakdos. It's a perfect Anthem effect as well, and a 3-drop slot too. Man, Rakdos is getting a ton of good stuff. Gruul and Rakdos so far. Looks like they've been getting a ton of really fun things. It's basically got Blood Artist as well on top of it too, which I really appreciate. And it's a legendary creature, which means this could be your commander as well. This is great for commander. This looks like a ton of fun for standard. Really need to see more of the set though, for sure, to make this like, you know, a top tier player in the format. I don't think it will because it is just a 2/2, but it's still really fun here. It gives a lot of pumps board wide for Gractos. This card is nothing but gas to me. And the art, again, Judith the Scourge Diva, cannot ask for anything better than that. Moving on to a blue card here, probably I would say maybe a Azorius card. This is Mass Manipulation, a 4 blue and XX sorcery. Gain control of X target creature and or planeswalkers. Holy cow. This is a rare, it's a sorcery. This card is insane, I love this. The flavor text here is, those who cross the Dimir find enemies everywhere they turn. I guess this is a Dimir card, not an Azorius card, even though it's in Ravnica Allegiance. But either way, Mass Manipulation here, super fun. I really wish this was like just 1x instead of the 2x, but I understand this being a 6-mana spell, being able to grab a Planeswalker. Either way, though, this is a really fun sideboard tech card in a control list for you, for sure. Maybe a Jeskai list or a Azorius list. We got to see what else Control has in store for us, but this card seems like a sideboard beast in the format. As far as Draft and Sealed, if you get this as your rare, if you're an Azorius, this card is amazing. Basically taking control of your opponent's biggest creature, and that's hilarious, and I love it. Again, Mass Manipulation, very fun, very flavorful, and being able to take multiple creatures if you have enough mana, or Planeswalkers, that's just even better. Next up for us, we have a Rakdos card here. This is Amplifier. This is a 4 red mana 1/1 creature elemental. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Until your next turn, Amplifier's base power becomes twice that card's power, and its base toughness becomes twice that card's toughness. Put the revealed card on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is super spicy. It's 4 mana for a 1/1, which is not great, which means that your opponent can definitely deal with it really quickly if it doesn't, if it hits the battlefield and your opponent has a response for it. But if it comes back around to your upkeep, you get to dig for your deck, make this a 3/3 or 6/6 or whatever, and swing in. It's really fun. It's super impactful, maybe to Draft and Sealed. I don't know about Standard. It seems like a little pricey for that format, but would be an all-star powerhouse in Commander, especially with all those high price cards in deck list in Commander, and it can definitely sort through your Commander or deck really quickly. So I really like it for that format, but not really anything else, honestly. This seems like a really fun card, though. I feel like the name and the art put together is like the perfect matching of flavor I've seen in a long time, and I do think that Amplifier will be really fun to see go off in Draft and Sealed once you do get into it. Let's move on to an Orzhov card here. This is Seraph of the Scales, a 4 mana 4/3 angel with flying. You can pay 1 white. Seraph of the Scales gains vigilance until end of turn. You can pay a black. Seraph of the Scales gains death touch until end of turn. It also has Afterlife 2, which means when this creature dies, create 2 1/1 white and black spirit creature tokens with flying. This is a mythic, and I'm not so sure it needs to be a mythic. It feels more like a rare to me. Obviously, this is a very powerful card. I'm assuming they made it mythic because you don't want to see this too much in Draft and Sealed, because it can definitely win the game by itself. A 4/3 flyer for 4 that can give itself vigilance and death touch, periodically, is amazing. And when it dies, it gives you 2 flyers. So this is like just a limited all-star forever, doing 4 damage and then 2 damage split across 2 flyers with evasion. That's amazing. This is going to be a great top-end flyer for you in Standard as well. I'm not so sure it'll see a ton of mainboard play, maybe some good sideboard play to trade out with stuff. I really wish it would give itself First Strike and Vigilance. That would be amazing. So that way it could trade with a Lyra Dawnbringer, because you could also pay the 1 black and give it Death Touch as well. That would be my pinnacle angel here for the Orzhov guild. Either way, Seraph of the Scales, as far as the art goes, is wonderful. Love the art on this. This is, I guess, kind of emulating the Death Pact angel from previous Ravnica sets, which is fine. But I still think this card pretty much stands on its own as a fantastic limited card for you. Great in Standard. Probably going to be really good in a token or flying-based attacking deck in white-black for Orzhov for Standard. Really excited to see some play. Next up for us, we have another card. This is an Azorius card, Precognitive Perception. Say that 3 times fast. This is a 5 mana instant. Draw 3 cards. It has Addendum, which means if we cast this during our main phase, we get to scry 3, then draw 3 cards. And the flavor text is, to control the present, we must master the future. And love the art on this. Really think it's fun. This is basically Jace's Ingenuity at rare because it has the word Addendum on it. Main phase, scry 3, draw 3 cards, I guess is fine if you're in top deck mode in Draft and Sealed. In Standard, you will never use this because it is too slow and it is too cumbersome to use the Addendum appropriately. But for Draft and Sealed, this is fine. I just feel kind of bad because it is a rare, which means you won't run into it too much for your Draft and Sealed pulls. Regardless, I do think this card is pretty fun for Draft and Sealed, and probably will see some play in Commander as well, since kind of doing card draw loops like this, especially with a scry 3 effect on your main phase, is really, really interesting amazing for Commander as well. A lot of people are saying it might be a strictly better version of Jace's Ingenuity. I would tend to agree with that for sure, but again, the addendum effect, it's just so specific and only really effective when you're not like holding up for counters, or you just have an abundance of mana, or of course if you have Teferi on the battlefield, and this is only a 3-mana draw 3, which is busted. So we could see this in an Azorius like Teferi list in Standard for sure if it comes to that as well. Moving on to a card here, this is Gruul Ravager Worm. This is a 3 colorless, 1 red, 2 green, 4/5 worm with Riot. Love that Riot effect. Enters the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. And when it enters the battlefield, we get to choose up to 1 Ravager Worm fights target creature you don't control, or destroy target land with an activated ability that isn't a mana ability. So this is really fun. It kind of gets rid of like cards like Azcanta perhaps. Not really sure what the secondary ability for the destroy target land with target in Standard. If you guys know, let me know in the comments down below. This is a mythic for sure, so you won't see it too much in draft and sealed, but if you do get into it, it's a 4/5 that can be hasty or a 5/6 that can just attack out the following turn. That's a monster behemoth, and it's 6 mana, so it is kind of, you know, expensive to get into it. But for Gruul, you know, you got lots of mana producers, Llanowar Elves, Druid of the Cowl, that kind of stuff in Standard. I assume Ravager Worm is going to be a premier Gruul card for you in Standard for sure. Draft and sealed though, this is a monster behemoth. It's going to be a bomb. Definitely in the bread category of bomb. Fantastic overall. Really not much else to say about Ravager Worm other than it's a great card. I really love the art here. Poor Griffin. He just never saw it coming. Moving on to a Rakdos card here. We have Spawn of Mayhem. This is a 4-mana 4/4 flying with trample and spectacle for 3 mana, which means if you cast this spell or for its spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then if you have 10 or less life, put a +1/+1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. That's doing a lot of stuff for just 4 mana, technically just 3 mana, because you're going to get this off on turn 3 pretty like frequently in the Rakdos Guild if you're playing Standard. As far as draft and sealed go, this is a mythic, so won't get into it too much, but if you do get into it, you probably want to go Rakdos, because this card is a brick house that gets larger turn over turn and also pings every single opponent, so also very good in Commander as well. And the art, everything about this card is amazing. I really love it from top to bottom. Just a great card overall. Again, can't say much about this card because it's kind of like Ravager Worm. It's just really, really good, and I can't wait to play this in Standard and Commander and all the other formats it's going to be in. Next, of course, we have an Orzhov card. This is a Tessa? Is it Tessa or Tessa? Please let me know in the comments below. Tessa Karlov, this is a 4-mana legendary creature, Human Advisor. It's a 2/4. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time, and creature tokens you control have Vigilance and Lifelink. Holy cow. Tessa, this card is amazing. This is a great commander for you. This is a great card in Standard. This is an amazing card in draft if you have an Afterlife deck for Orzhov. Man, this card is amazing. It's kind of like Intangible Virtue with Lifelink on top, and also like you get to trigger abilities over and over again, so Afterlife triggers a second time, which is really good. This is Panharmonicon on a creature, but for death triggers. Was this card like made specifically for Saffron Olive to brew around? Because it feels like it. Either way, this card is amazing. I love this card. 4-mana 2/4, not terrible, but not necessarily great. Can definitely survive a Lightning Strike, can't survive a Lava Coil, but it's still an amazing card overall. Definitely a card you can build around for an Orzhov token list. Maybe a card that might see some modern play with a flying tokens list as well. Lingering Souls with this card seems like a lot of fun, and I do think that, you know, having Afterlife in the format with this card alongside it, it's just gonna be crazy. Lots of stuff going on here with this set. Next up for us, we've got a Gruul card. Again, this is Skargon Hellkite. Gotta have it, Hellkite. This is a 5-mana creature dragon with Riot, which means it can be a 4/4 with haste or a 5/5 flyer. You can also pay 4 mana, and it deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. Activates ability only if the Hellkite has a +1/+1 counter on it. So this does kind of limit the Riot trigger on top of it, which I guess is interesting, kind of an interesting ability here. A 5-mana 4/4 flyer is good with haste. That's really good for draft and sealed. A 5-mana 5/5 flyer that gets to like ping stuff down turn over turn is really good in draft and sealed. I don't know if this card's going to see too much play in Standard. 4 mana to do 2 points of damage if it's a 5/5. That seems like not great, but I could be wrong there. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think this is going to be really good as a sideboard card for a lot of good matchups, but a 5-mana 4/4 with haste is just great overall. I mean, that's Glorybringer. We love Glorybringer and being able to ping stuff down. if it's a 5/5, is very good as well. It's giving you different options here, and I think it's really fun. The problem, of course, is that it's mythic. You're not going to see it too much in draft and sealed, and that's really disappointing because this card feels like it's going to be a huge bomb in draft and sealed. Next up for us, we have a Pleasant Kenobi spoiler. This is from Pleasant Kenobi's spoiler video. If you want to check that out, definitely search him up on YouTube. He's a good guy. This is a Bolrac Clan Crusher, a 5-mana 4/4 Ogre Warrior creature. You can tap it, remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control, and the Clan Crusher deals 2 damage to any target. Very interesting. This is an uncommon as well, so you're going to see it in draft and sealed quite a bit. So a 5-mana 4/4 is not bad in draft and in sealed, and have it being able to kind of remove counters if it's kind of got like a Simic thing on top of it or a Riot thing as well is really fun. Again, the +1/+1 counters works with Simic and it works with Riot as well, so I really like this card overall. I think in a Gruul list, this is very fun. Kind of on curve what you want to do with draft and sealed, but probably not going to see any kind of play in standard. Seems a little too expensive for that format, but I could be wrong there because of course it does do 2 points of damage to any target, which means it could be a Planeswalker or an opponent's face. Next up, we have a split card. This is Dispose to Deploy. This is Dispose is a 2-mana instant. Tap target creature, draw a card, and Deploy is a 4-mana instant. Create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Then you gain 1 life for each creature you control. This is very good as an uncommon for us in draft and in sealed because it gives us a really good tempo in Azorius. I almost said Orzhov there. In Azorius. I'm not so sure this will see much play in standard. It seems like it might though, based on the Deploy giving us 2 blockers and gaining some life. So it seems like it would be a really good sideboard tech card against a aggro strategy or a go wide strategy like Selesnya in the matchups for Azorius control, something like that perhaps. Either way, I think this card is really fun for both matchups. We'll definitely see play draft and sealed, and probably some sideboard play for Azorius or Jeskai maybe in standard. Next up for us, we have Growth Chamber Guardian, a 2-mana 2/2. This is a rare. It's a creature elf warrior. You can pay 3 and adapt 2, which means if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on the Growth Chamber Guardian, you may search your library for a card named Growth Chamber Guardian, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is really interesting because it is a card that gets other cards of the same name, which is very fun. It's sort of like a weird Squadron Hawk type ability here. Haven't really seen something like this other than the Elvish Clan Caller from Core Set 2019, just earlier last year, or later last year, I guess, a few months ago at least. I do think regardless though, the Chamber Guardian is going to be a really fun card in a mono green elf list. Definitely going to be building around this for sure because the Adapt 2 is really fun, making it a 4/4, and it's also searching up for another card, making your deck thinner, and it's only 3 mana, so getting this over and over again is really fun and very powerful. And of course, going into an elf list makes this just mono green elves that much better in standard. A really fun card for draft and sealed. It is a rare, so you're not going to get into it too much. A 2-mana 2/2 in draft and sealed isn't great, but making this a 2-mana 4/4 if you have the mana on turn 3 is really good, and I can't wait to get into that for draft and sealed. The last card for today, of course, is Wilderness Reclamation. This is a 4-mana enchantment. It's an uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. This card seems kind of insane. I'm really excited to see like the implications of this card for what's going to happen in standard. I'm not so sure this card will see much play in maybe draft and sealed. It's a 4-mana enchantment, so it's kind of one of those things where it feels like it might see play in draft and sealed. It's definitely going to see play in commander for sure. But yeah, this card is dumb. Feels like a really good like ramp card for you. Maybe turning this into a Turbo Fog card for you for the format for standard. That would be hilarious. Basically being able to cast stuff and then untap everything on your opponent's turn and being able to counter stuff, and then it's your turn again. You get to do stuff and then you untap again during their turn. That seems really busted. That seems insanely powerful. And for 4 mana, I don't know if this can actually get away with that. Oh wow, this feels like a mythic to me instead of an uncommon, and that's kind of not a good thing. But let me know what you guys think of all of the cards we talked about today in the previews down below. Of course, like if you like it, if you like these preview videos, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell icon to be notified whenever a new video on the channel goes live. We just posted a new Atanami Vintage Cube draft on the video, the channel today, not the video, on the channel today. I can't talk because I'm talking about all these Magic cards today. I'll be streaming today at noon Central Standard Time if this goes up by then, and if not, then you can definitely check me out because I'll still be there for probably 2 or so hours after I go live there playing some Magic or playing whatever I want to play because it's my Twitch stream. But I'll leave the link in the first comment pinned below. But love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Woo, Ravnica Allegiance is hype.